Hello everyone. I remember being a new software engineer, sifting through the numerous repositories owned and maintained by my new employer. Each repository was filled with seemingly countless files and lines of code. It seemed even the simplest of the implementations were buried many layers deep. And to add to the stress, these layers were packaged in remote repositories. As my career advanced to management positions, I could tell when new employees were stressed, learning the new frameworks. After all, I'd been in their shoes. Did you know that it can take months for new employees to really become contributing members of an organization? And did you know those organizations expect that? Students and other individuals new to software engineering often believe that algorithm knowledge and algorithm development represents the majority of the work effort. Many new engineers are surprised to find out that the design of the development environment and the framework represents a significant portion of the time allocated to projects. When preparing for a job interview, it's important to appear like a seasoned and mature engineer. I want to share some insight that I feel may be helpful toward that goal. Large projects are developed using continuous integration and continuous development strategies, often referred to as CI/CD strategies. Modular code designs should allow new features to be added without modifying large portions of the existing code base. This presentation will emphasize an important concept known as single sources of truth. Appropriate implementation of this concept can entail significant overhead, demonstrating that you fundamentally understand that this concept will help support your claim of being a mature software engineer or developer. Hard coding values in multiple places throughout a code base is bad practice in enterprise level software. In fact, you should probably always avoid doing that. When the same value appears in multiple project files, services, or repositories, the system code base becomes quite fragile. Hard-coded values are difficult to maintain because changes must be repeated identically in several code locations. Shared values should live in dedicated repositories or configuration files. All usages of that value in the system code base should reference that one single source of truth. Enumerations and constants represent fixed sets of values with clear meaning. They also improve readability and reduce ambiguous references. They also prevent invalid values from being introduced. Instead of scattering raw values throughout the code base, define them once and reuse them everywhere. For example, enterprise color values or colors that are important to the company, such as logo backgrounds, should be defined in enums rather than hard-coded as raw color values. If a value update is needed, the value only needs to be updated in one place. It is common for enums and constants to be collected as a standalone package. This package can be added as a dependency when needed. The idea is to make the code modular, and be mindful this will add a bit of overhead. Always specify versions for dependencies, libraries, and tools. Explicit versions ensure consistency across environments and deployments. Avoid using latest or unspecified versions. Unpinned dependencies make builds unpredictable and non-reproducible. Version pinning allows teams to upgrade intentionally rather than accidentally. Most of all, popular languages have a package manager closely associated with it. For example, C++ has CMake, Java uses Maven or Gradle, Python utilizes pip, and web developers often find themselves using npm or the Node package manager. Learning package managers is just as important as learning the language itself. Good coding practices will certainly introduce additional overhead. That is something you can count on. But be aware, the best practices approach does not imply the easiest path. Good designs require more time, planning, and discipline up front. Developing the framework is very important. Initial setup and configuration may be slower, however the long-term benefits will outweigh the initial cost. Maintainability, scalability, and reliability will improve over time. Best practice does not mean easy or quick. It means sustainable and professional code bases. People that have worked in the engineering industry for a while will certainly say that the tools have improved remarkably with respect to packaging and versioning, such as GitHub tags are allows to mark important points in repository history, such as releases. They are used to label versions and preserve traceability. Packages serve a different purpose. They are used to distribute reusable artifacts and libraries. Tags define versions of the code base. Packages distribute consumable components built from those versions. It's very important to use these tools, and it's very important to not reinvent the wheel when these tools exist. Maven is a build automation and dependency management tool for Java. Dependencies and project configurations are defined in what's known as the POM file, or the project object model. Maven Central is commonly used for public open source libraries. Developers and corporations will develop these libraries for the common public to use freely. GitHub packages are often used for private or organization specific artifacts. Maven can be used to publish to either one of these locations. Versions should always be explicitly specified in the POM file to ensure consistent and repeatable builds. I would like to take a moment to walk you through some examples of some of the topics we discussed. I'd like to walk through some concrete examples of how we can develop something in Java and use Maven to publish a GitHub package. We'll also examine enums, version packages, and dependency pinning. So take a moment, I'll go to my screen, and I will show you some of the examples. Okay, so I'm at my computer, and I'm going to demonstrate a few things. First, we're going to demonstrate how to pin a package on a dependency in Maven, so that way we can use one program that depends on another one with a specific version. I'm going to demonstrate how to publish a package to GitHub, and there's going to be some overhead to this, and it's actually going to take a little bit of work to get the environment configured. Now, when you go start your future job or your own project, there may be some design choices that they have implemented that may be a little bit different, but in this video, I'm just going to show you the basics of tagging a specific commit or a version inside of GitHub. I'm going to show you how to publish a package using Maven to GitHub, and I'm going to show you how to run a program that depends on another program library, whatever, with a specific version. So all of this is going to be demonstrated in this video, and so I hope you enjoy it. Just keep in mind, this is not a one-size-fits-all type thing. You will work for employers that will automate this through GitHub workflows. This is just the basics using Maven. Okay, so to get started, let's go ahead and pull up our terminal. Now, for those of you guys that are using Windows, you're probably maybe using Git Bash or whatever else. There's a very important directory that's associated with Maven. So the first thing that I'd recommend that you do is go into your home directory, which is cd tilde. All right, so I was already there. Clear the screen off. And there's going to be a directory. If you've installed IntelliJ and it probably installed Maven with it, most likely you're going to have this directory. So do cd.m2. It's called the M2 directory. It's very important to Maven. Now, if you do not have that directory, you need to create it. So let's assume that maybe you don't have it. So I'll go back to my home directory. Let's suppose that you do cd.m2 and it gives an error. Here's what you want to do. You want to do mkdir and then do .m2. What that does is make the directory. If you've installed IntelliJ correctly and it's running, you probably have already got this there. So let me go back. cd.m2. Now I'm in that directory. When I show what the contents are of that directory, we see that we have the repository directory and we have the settings.xml directory. What the repository directory does is every single time that we have Maven bring in some sort of remote package to be used in another program, it will actually keep a local file of it. So if you need version 3.4 of any package that or if you have a specific package and you need version 3.4, it will bring that to the local repository, and Maven will not reach back out to the remote repositories anymore because it will just use it locally. Now, if you need another version or a different package, then it will put that into the repository. So typically you only have to do this once for every one of them. The POM file Maven will handle all this together. So in general, stay out of that. Probably directory is the best advice for right now. Now this settings.xml file, very important. There's an excellent chance that you may or may not have this file. I took a brief moment to look at my file myself because these files, this settings.xml file, sometimes they have user privileges or specific keys that uniquely identify you, and I want to make sure before I had this recording that I had something in there. So I'm starting out with a blank settings file. Let's suppose you may not have this file, this settings.xml. If you don't see this settings.xml file, then you should create it. And the way you could do it is you could type in the command touch and then settings.xml. Now I'm operating on an Apple computer. Almost all these commands that I'm using is going to be a drop-in replacement for anybody on a Linux or an Apple computer, or if you're using Git Bash. So if you're not using Git Bash, I don't know if this is how well this is going to work on your Windows terminals. I always recommend installing Git Bash because it installs everything that you need to make everything work. Okay, so I am actually going to start from scratch. I'm going to remove this settings.xml file. So let's assume now that I may be looking at, some of you guys are, to where all you have is the repository directory and that's it. So I'm going to issue the command touch and then settings.xml. All that does is just create it, but it'll be completely empty. Now I'm going to use Vim, which is a terminal editor, to go in and make edits to this XML file. All right, notice that this is completely empty. Now I need to go in and I need to kind of fill it out just a bit. So the way you do that is you put it in insert mode, which is Shift I. Now if you notice down here, maybe my thing is blocking it, you'll notice that I'm now in insert mode. So just to be clear, this is what it looked like before. So when I hit Shift Enter or Shift I, it goes to insert mode. Now, the easiest way, now again, the world has gotten a lot better here lately. We got generative AI and a few other things. Here's what I recommend we do. Let's go to our browser and just go to ChatGPT or whatever your favorite browser is, and you'll be able to find this very quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, generate a very simple settings.xml file for Maven. And it may even actually create too much. We may have to delete some of the things. Now the reason, okay, so this is perfect. What you want to do is basically just have this. The reason that I asked it to do this is because there's some little tags in here that are important for Maven that kind of tells the versions or whatever else it's using. This is common to all XML files, so I would recommend that you just copy that and then go over here, and whenever you paste into a terminal, it can be a little bit annoying, so you probably want to just right click and paste and not use your hotkeys. So again, maybe it gets by with just the settings, but it's always appropriate to probably have this in here. My default one came with all it in there, so maybe it's important, maybe it's not. I'd recommend just doing this. All right, so now we need to actually maybe hit a tab or whatever, and we're going to create something called servers, and then we're going to close it with servers. All right, and this is going to be all the servers that we're going to be accessing. So server, by the way, it's going to be GitHub in this case. So if you're curious about maybe how do we get to this kind of quickly, you can go back to ChatGPT without having to type all this in, and we could say, create a server section for GitHub tokens that I can copy. Okay, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. This is what I was going to type out by myself, but since this thing is helping me, that would be even easier. So I went ahead and typed this. I'll just delete it and I'll paste what it's going to do. So paste that in there. Okay, now you typically want to align things very well, like probably you want to have tabs and I'll just put it in a certain way. That is kind of up to you, but it won't really matter. So leave the ID alone and now go over to where it says your GitHub username. ChatGPT kind of gave that as a little slug as a placeholder. And my username is going to be Nathan J. Russell. Now, to be clear, this is the value that you find right here on your profile. So that's it right there. That is your username, the very top little line there. Okay, so now the question is how do I get this GitHub token? Now, this is where we're going to have some configuration things that we have to do in GitHub. So even though we're going to be using a public repository, packages still require something called a personal access tokens on GitHub. Every repository that you use, and I mean every single one of them that you use, whether it be Maven Central, GitHub, GitLab, whatever, they're all going to have their own little unique things that's going to be required for publishing or reading packages. It's just one of these growing pains that we have to go through as an engineer, but once you typically set these things up, it's kind of a one shot and you're done. So let's go to GitHub and let's get a token generated. You're going to go and click your face, and then you're going to go down and go to settings. Okay, and then you're going to go all the way down and click developer settings. And then here, click this little thing down and click tokens classic. Now tokens, they've kind of did some revamps of these things. So this may be phasing out, I'm not sure. But these fine-grained tokens allow you to kind of allocate privileges in a more kind of very narrowly defined way, but we're going to use the old classic ones here. Good. Now you see I click that and it's now saying no personal access token created because I deleted all of them. And by the way, I will delete the one that I create on here so that way before I publish this video, I'll have it deleted. So I'm not actually giving anything away. I'm just doing it for example. So I'm going to click generate new token and I'm going to say generate new token classic. All right, so now it's going to ask me verify. I'll do this. Great. Now we're at this new personal access token. On this, if you want to do yourself a favor, if you're in my course or if you're doing someone else's course, it may be better to say pick a date after the course ends. Otherwise, maybe you don't want an expiration date since you're learning. This is kind of a security flaw because if you never let it expire, you've kind of got some things dangling out there and you may have to delete it. Let me just assume that this is what we're doing for our course. Just bear with this. Now, what we want to do is we want to go down here and select this, write packages, read packages. Now, in your what this means is that for public repositories, you're able to read packages from public repositories, but it also means that you're able to write packages to your own repositories, if that makes sense. So with GitHub, you're able to clone public repositories without authenticating. You are not allowed to use public repositories that have packages in them without having a personal access token. So long story short, you need this and just select these two for the time being. Okay, go all the way down here and then generate token. Oops, I forgot to give it a note. So give it some sort of meaningful note, and I'm going to say Apple desktop. And then in parentheses, I'll put demo video so that way I know to remove this whenever I get done. Now, no expiration. We've already clicked this. Whenever you click this, these go by default because it doesn't make sense to have this without these other things. And we're going to click generate token. Now, what I had said earlier, this right here is my token. Now, this would be a very bad security flaw. If I was recording this and making it available to the internet with this exposed, you don't want anybody else to be able to see this. And if you leave this screen and come back to it, you'll never be able to get these values back. So what you want to do is you want to click this little copy button. And then, like I said, I'll delete this before I upload the video, but for right now, for demo purposes, click the copy button and then go back over to your Git Bash terminal. And right here where it says password, that's where you want to paste this. Okay? And just kind of give it a quick glance. So it starts out with GHP, and it ends with YGK, ends in YGK. So it sounds like we're pretty good. And I believe this will be enough. Now keep in mind, these things change quite rapidly with the security parameters. I may have to go back in and edit this. Perhaps I forgot something. So just be mindful. Now the way that you actually save something, so remember I was in insert mode. You need to go and hit the escape button. On your keyboard, hit the escape button. And what you will realize is that this insert tag will go away. Okay, now I'm in, I guess, what they call command mode. Now I'm going to hit a colon, and I'm going to hit WQ, which means write and quit. So now whenever I list out the settings.xml file, you'll see that I've got all that in there, which is what I just typed out for the contents of the file. Clear this off, and I think we're done with this. So let's go to our home directory and just get out of that. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to actually go to a repository that I've been using, and I'm going to say, let me go to repositories on my organizations for abstract classroom Java, right here. Now, I've got a lot of repositories in here that I use demonstrations for, so I don't really like the way I named this. I kind of maybe didn't pay attention to it so well. But version company enums. Now, even though I named it this, I'm going to try to make you guys believe that I have developed a program and it's going to have to use some other program, right? So this is my program that's going to have a dependency on some other package that exists somewhere else in a remote repository. So let's just go ahead and clone this and clone that, or copy that. Go over here and do maybe, I got a special directory for my GitHub. I will go into maybe CD teaching. Okay, now I will issue the command git clone, to clone this repository to my local computer. Great, and it should be there. Now I'm going to go to IntelliJ. I'm using the enterprise level version, but you guys should be fine with Community Edition. If you're a student, then you get this automatically. And if you're okay with this, I'm going to go ahead and open it, but I'm already in there. Open. I think I was in GitHub, and then teaching, and then oh, here it is. Now, I want to open the folder that contains the POM file. So this contains the POM file. Remember, that was called the project object model, and this is kind of the way Maven uses this file to reconcile all dependencies, and I'm going to click open. Okay, takes a bit for it to load, I guess. Do you see this down here? It says resolving Maven dependencies. It's actually reaching out to the remote repository and downloading a dependency that I have, and I'll show it to you in a second. So open up the project object model, and let's take a peek at something. Notice that again we have an XML layout. Now here we have, this thing is called group ID IO GitHub Nathan J. Russell, so this is just made up, doesn't really matter what this is. But this right here is important. This is where I'm telling Maven, I need a dependency. Well, Maven doesn't know. Maven will probably default to Maven Central. Whenever you install IntelliJ, it probably put a bunch of things in there to make Maven Central the place to go. But this particular package is actually existing in a repository, in a GitHub organization called Nate the Great Incorporated. Obviously, that was just some sort of random thing. And then it's in a repository called static values. So the repository, the package that I'm going to be using, is actually here. And I had to make Maven aware of where to find that. So this is where I define repositories. Now I come down here and I actually define. So I told it where to look, and now I'm going to tell it what exactly to get, because whenever I go to this, there is actually going to be multiple values there. So I'm going to say, as a dependency for this project that I'm working on, I need you to go get io.github.nathegreat. I need you to get the artifact ID called static values, and I need you to get version 1. Now there's multiple versions of this. Okay, so just to show you how this is running, I'm going to open up and go to the main. Here we go. And you see where I've got these strings out here. So if you look, these things are reaching out to enums. So this part right here is actually not in my project. The only thing this driver has is just a main driver file. There's absolutely nothing else in here except for that main driver file. Okay, the main entry point. So you have the class main, and then we have this main method. We'll do it, and here's the company get string. This is coming from these coming from a remote location. So keep in mind, whenever you work for an enterprise, there's going to be people that are working on the front end. There's going to be people that's going to be working on the back end. There's people that are going to be using marketing mailing. And the company has to make sure that everybody's using the same color for the logo. They have to make sure that everybody's using the same font family. They have to make sure everybody's using the same font size when it's appropriate. So we have to make sure that the company telephone and the company website and the logo font color, logo background color, the logo, the website font color, the logo background color, all of that has to be standardized, or else your company looks like it's not really serious, right? So how do we do this? Well, we define an enum somewhere to where everything that's going to be relying on those colors is going to be reaching out to that remote repository to bring it in as kind of the single source of truth. Okay, so to give an idea of what we're talking about, imagine that I don't put this here, and then everywhere throughout the code base, whenever I said using the hard-coded things, I'm going to say, welcome to Nate the Great Incorporated, right? Okay, great. Now, that would be what we call hard coding, but this is bad because if this is going to be spread all over through the websites, the marketing mailers, the JavaScript logo things that people put on their websites, whatever, this is going to be terrible because we would have to go through and change this every single place, and we have to make sure that people typed it in exactly right. What's better is what we're implying here is that we don't use this and that we actually just use the repository where all these things are defined. So now everybody in the company will just reach out to that repository and update it. So that means that if there's an update that happens, we don't have to change it in that one location and then let everybody know, hey, it's been changed. Maybe you need to bump the version for the packages depending on. And then this gets propagated, this change gets propagated everywhere. Okay, so let me run this just to show you that it does work. Okay, so I've got a lot of things running on my computer right now, as you might be able to see, so that's the reason it's taking a while. Now, oh my goodness, look at what the company motto is here for this. Oh my gosh, that's not going to work. Our company motto is customers are great, but they can be annoying. Well, let's suppose that maybe the marketing team says that's not all that great, right? Maybe we should not say that about our customers. We're a very employee-based organization, but we don't want to say that our customers are annoying, so we need to update that. So where would they update that? Well, I am going to tell you that I am going to completely ignore this for the moment, and I'm actually going to go to another GitHub repository. And inside these organizations, I have another organization called Nate the Great Inc., right? So Nate the Great Inc. is right here. It's only going to have one repository in it, and this is going to be the repository, static values. So the company decided, hey, we need to make sure that everything that we have, whether it be colors, whether it be like our company motto, whether it be anything associated that's going to be statically and reused often, we're going to define them in enums inside this repository called static values. Okay, so if we go down here and look at the code, we can clone this, but I want to show you guys something first. There's something called tags. Now in this particular case, I only have two tags. I have version 1.1.0 and I have version 1.4.0. I have no idea. I think I was doing a lecture where I had other versions there and I had to delete them to like not give away certain things. But anyway, so let's go back to Nate the Great Incorporate Static Values. And I want to show you something else. Here we've actually created packages. Now in the packages, you'll notice that I actually have multiple of them. I have version 1.0.0, I have version 1.1.0, and version 1.4.0. Now this is not good practice. I should have a tag for each one of these versions, right? So this is just to show you that tags and packages are actually two separate things inside of GitHub, and we're going to demonstrate both of them, okay? Now let's go to the code and let's just bring in this repository to our local computer. All right, well, we're going to do git clone. And now we've got it on our local computer. Now we're going to go to IntelliJ and we're going to say, hey, open that for us. And static values. And we're going to open the one that contains the POM file. And we're going to keep these two windows open, so I'm just going to say new window. Trust the project, sure. All right, sorry about the little blip. I decided to close a few things to kind of free up my computer a little bit. Okay, now let's look inside of this. This is the static values. So I want to be clear about what's happening here. We have this program, which is nothing but this main file, and it's printing this out. These items right here are not defined inside this program. They are actually defined in another program, which is in another repository, this one. Now, why is that important? It's because we have defined these values in a remote repository and we brought them in. We're then instructing Maven, we're instructing Maven using the POM file to go reach out to that. We've told whether it's in GitHub at this location and which version to get here. We're using version 1.0 here, or 1.0 inside of the program where you also define. But these things are defined over here in a separate program. So notice here that we got, they've decided to update this just a bit, right? They've now decided that customers are great, and that has always been the position on the matter. So that is the kind of the latest edition of it. That would be kind of like version 1.4 that you've seen over there. They've decided, hey, you know what? Things are a little bit rough. We don't really want to tell our customers that they're annoying sometimes. So we've decided that the company motto will be updated, and this has always been our position. Well, now we're going to do version maybe 5. So like we got in a little bit of trouble as Nate the Great incorporated, where we said initially our customers are annoying, and then we did in version 1.4 or whatever that we said our customers are great, and that's always been our position. And somebody has said, you know what, you guys are liars because you did say we were annoying. I've seen it, I remember it, and for you to say that that's not true is not correct. So the marketing team says that we need to fix this, right? We can't have this anymore. Our customers are great, and we're just going to say period, right? Our customers are great, and we don't want to have any more discussions about it. This is it. And let's also assume that, you know, during that hardship, we couldn't pay the telephone company, and so they issued another telephone number out to someone else. Kind of ridiculous, right? Sounds like a great organization to work for. Now our telephone number is 2587. Okay? Okay, so what have we defined here? We defined a public enum called company. This enum works like this. You have the constructor, same name as this, but then you define the way that you're going to be like continually referencing it. Notice that the enum, notice that the package is from io.github.natethegreat incorporated. Whenever I package this up, I'll go source, main, Java, and then notice that the package, right? And we define this enum called company. And we have company motto, company name, telephone. Now go back to the place where we're at. Notice that we are this name, just is like the one on my computer, but we are importing io.github.natethegreat incorporated enums, colors, logo, colors, website, strings, and company, right? Over here, repository. Notice we also have all the other colors, strings, logo, website, other packages. So notice how this aligns here. We have Nate the Great incorporated as the package, enums, and then we have strings, company. Go back over here to where we're using it. Notice that this follows exactly io.github.natethegreat incorporated, enums, strings, company. And notice that we're using the company name now, which is going to be defined here. And so every time we make a reference to that company name from this remote package, it should print this. So if I need to update, all anyone has to do is just refer to this enum, and they will have the latest version. But we don't want to do that because let's suppose that we work for a corporation that actually develops things for multiple clients. Some of our clients may want to use the old values. Some of our new clients want to use the regular values. This is very common to where a company will develop something and have multiple versions of it. Just imagine when you use Windows, at one point you might have been using Windows 10 and some people were using Windows 11. Windows had to make sure that they kind of kept that together, right? So there are going to be multiple versions used at the same time. This is where we want to package things together. So notice that I've updated this company motto and the company telephone number. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tag a new version of this. So I'm going to go here to the terminal. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to say git add, well, let's do git status first, show everybody. Git add status. So as you can see, we made a change to the company directory, which means we've changed the motto and we changed the telephone. And if you want to look at the commit versions, you can actually see the diff if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to stage this to be committed. So git add dot, that means just stage everything. And then I'm going to do git commit dash m, and I'm going to say updated, always give a meaningful message here, updated motto and telephone. Okay. Now we need to go over here and actually do something else. And be quite honest, I almost forgot it. We need to go over here and change this from version 1.1. Sorry, 1.5 of an error there. We need maybe, let's say it's 1.5. So we need to change our POM file to represent that. So I need to actually commit that to git status. Notice that the POM file changed, so I got to stage that change. So git add period git commit. And sometimes it's very common in your work in the industry. For a commit like this, we'll say bumped version number for motto and can't type, sorry guys. Okay, just kind of brief in and out. And then what we'll do is get all these things, hit stats, shows all the things that we pushed up, and we're going to say git push. All right, so I got a little bit of a reconcile problem here. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I wanted to check something locally just to make sure I don't screw up a homework assignment associated with this. So in this particular case, we can actually, since this is kind of a very simple thing, and this is just where I've got a little bit of things where I was demonstrating things to students. I got a little things, a little bit off kilter. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to force this, which means I'm just going to say basically force it. And it's just going to make this kind of push it up the way it is because there's no real problems here other than I just want to just kind of push what I got. Now, to be clear, what I'm about to do here is not something that you should do a lot. It's just where this is so trivial, it's not even important. It's okay. All right, so now we go over here and let's look, and we see that we have Nathan Gray static values, and we have all these things, and we had a push 3 minutes ago. Great. Okay, so there we go. Now notice that we still just have these two tags. We still have just version 1.1.0 and 1.4.0, but notice I just wanted to create a version 1.5.0. So what I can do is I can go back to my terminal and I could say git tag version 1.5.0. And then I could do git push origin, v 1.5.0, hit enter. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to push a version to my repository. Notice I now have 3 tags. So we have version 1.5.0. Now it was created just a few minutes ago. So why are these versions important? Well, it turns out that package managers like CMake can rely on these tags. It says go fetch this tag. And for things like CMake in the C language or whatever else, or basically a lot of home-rolled package managers, whatever, it means that you can actually click this zip file and it will actually package up that entire repository the way it looked whenever I tagged version 1.5.0, and it will download it. So it's almost kind of like giving a named commit. It's like you're naming a specific commit, but it's a little extra because you can actually go to these tags and you could download the zip file associated with version 1.5.0. A lot of times this is actually what's happening for like that when you have like a fetch with CMake or something like that. For the C language, it's actually returning the zip file, I believe. But we're using Maven, which is going to be kind of an enhanced version of this. So once you create a package, it tends to become immutable and you don't want people to mess with it. Along with a package, you also get a few extra things. So whenever you use a tag, you're kind of relying on the owner of the repository to say, hey, this is version 1.5 and I haven't messed with it and it's reliable. But when you do a package, there's a little bit more to it. If you notice that there's a bunch of things inside of here, you have MD5 files, you have SHA files, these are hashes. You also have signatures associated with it as well. When you have signatures and these hashes, What that does is it's verifying to Maven that even no one at GitHub that might have actually been on the back-end system of GitHub changed this by accident, or the signature is still the same, so you can verify that it has been mutated since the last time it was uploaded. And you also know who uploaded. So packages tend to be a lot more static and rigid, so that way once they're out there, they're kind of like permanent somewhat. You can delete this if you wanted to. But on Maven Central, it's actually quite difficult to impossible to actually delete something once you publish it out there. So anyway, long story short, that's a package. So what does a package do? A package is where it includes a whole lot of things that a package manager such as Maven may have added to it, and GitHub as a kind of Maven repository, because it's very specific, Maven repository, it knew what to expect from Maven to publish a Maven style package. So maybe that's clear, maybe it's not. It takes some effort. I encourage you to do your own research. What is the difference, like ChatGPT? What is the difference between tags and packages? Packages tend to be very specific to package managers, like pip. It requires a certain format. Maven requires a certain format. Whenever you do tags, it's kind of like you roll your own, or CMake kind of somebody made it, and it can basically just be zip filed to where the repository looks exactly like it did. Whereas these are actually creating jar files that are executables and everything else. All right, so long story short, notice that we do not yet have, sorry, I clicked too fast. We have 3 tags, but as far as the packages, we still have just what? 1.0.0, 1.1.0, and 1.4.0, but we just created a 1.5. That's because I never asked Maven to bundle it up and package it, right? I never told Maven to actually do that for me. So I'm going to go back over here where I've actually made that change. Notice that I have in this folder, in this POM file, I bumped the version to 1.5, but notice that I had to actually, so remember, this is the place where the remote repository where the single sources of truth are located, and this one is where I'm actually using that package. So in this one, you just make it aware where the repository exists, and you tell the dependency of what version you're running. On the single source of truth enums, where the package that's containing these values are at, you have to let the version be known, and you have to tell Maven how to distribute it, how to deploy it. Well, in this case, it's being deployed to Nate the Great Incorporated static values. So hopefully it's not too confusing because I'm using the same one in 2 different locations. Just keep in mind, this is the POM file for the things that's being deployed. This is the POM file for the program that's using that thing that got deployed as a package, as a dependency. Okay, go back to this one. And now let's see how we can deploy it. Let's go over here and click the Maven lifecycle, and we're going to click deploy. Double click on deploy. For a minute I thought something bad had happened, but looks like we're okay. So you see the progress where it say I'm publishing this. Great. And it says it was successful. Now let's go over here to this, and we're going to click code. Let's go back down now and see packages. And now notice that this thing now has version 1.0.0, 1.1.1, 1.4.0, and now it actually contains 1.5.0, right? So we just published a package. So remember, and this is telling you how you can include it in your POM file to use this package. So let's go back to our other one. So what happened here? In static values, the single source of truth, that's not a phrase, it's just a common kind of like a paradigm, single source of truth approaches. But we've updated the repository, did the TIFF, and then the management team sends out an email, all the vice presidents of engineering or whatever else is happening, project managers send out an email that says, hey guys, the appropriate version to use for these strings now is going to be version 1.5.0. So we go over here to our program that's relying on it, and if it's okay, I haven't changed anything yet. Notice that my POM file is still wanting to use what? Version 1.4 or 1.0.0. And note that when I program, these are out. This is where we have this other mishap. And then we switch to version 1.4.0. That one will say, customers are great, and that's always been our position. And then customers got upset, and so management team decided, and the marketing team that had focus groups, we decided to change the company model one more time, and the appropriate company model is now included in version 1.4.0. I'm sorry, 1.4.5.0. So I'm going to update my package and I'm going to make it go to 1.5. Notice that that was red for a moment. That turned red, and that's because Maven is letting me know there's been a change, but you don't have it yet. Whenever you make a change to a POM file, you need to click this little like sync thing to let Maven know that there's been a change. Because a lot of times in IntelliJ it saves automatically, and you may say, why doesn't it update itself? Well, because you may be making a lot of intermediate changes before you want to like initialize the change. So once you get it, if you see this little thing, you need to click that, or it's the same thing as clicking this in the Maven window. So in the Maven window, you click this, or just the button here. What it was, Maven knows my pile has been updated. So what I have to do now is I have to go cycle. I have to clean out the repositories before, get rid of it. That's successful. And we go down to click install. Install now you did first. I want you guys to see what actually this is going to be main. Notice before we have this essential truth. It says that our customers are annoying. Version 1.4 says, well, customers are great and it's always been our position. We got hammered for lying. Now we have to use version 1.5.0, and this is what we got loaded. We've already installed out the old one. We have 1.5. What happens when we run this one? Notice that our company motto has been updated. So imagine that we have maybe 30 or 40 places where this company motto has been updated. If everybody had not used this right here, and they basically just took this string here, like are great, and blah, 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 period, then every single place where we had that hard-coded in there, we'd have to go change. But now, since we used appropriate coding styles, we put the code, we put the telephone number, notice the telephone number has been the number for. Notice that has been changed. Notice that version 1.4 did certain things. Now we've updated that one. So now we only changed it where? We changed it in the single source of truth. We pushed it to the repository. We tagged it as version 1.5.0. Then we packaged it up as a Maven package as 1. 1.5.0, and now everybody in the company with all their programs, with all the 30 or 40 programs that may be using this company motto, and all the people that are in the marketing team that are actually using it to handle the mailers to get their correct motto on the merge mails or whatever. All the people developing the front end website, all the people doing the app development, where they just it. Technically, what I have done is I've created a package for Java, so it really would only apply to all the Java folks. But I could have serialized that as a JSON object, then had Java digest it and create enums from that, and we would have been fine. A lot of that is actually automated through GitHub workflows, so when something's changed, it will kick off a workflow that will update 'all the components that use it in the single source of truth for the specific languages, so to speak, and then people will bump the versions individually. So great. Hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully it was kind of cool. I hope that you see the power of this. Also keep in mind, on continuous integration, continuous development, you never want to make wide sweeping changes. You never want a small update to like touch various parts of the code base, because every time you touch multiple locations, that is that many more times that somebody could make a mistake. And it could lead to a bug that maybe gets hidden until something disastrous happens. So the more modular we can make the code, now keep in mind, this did add some overhead, right? It did require us to like go publish this somewhere else. We had to develop the repository. We had to kind of get the Maven stuff set up. We had to set up our M2 file so we could publish to it. We had to set up the personal access tokens. But after we did that, that means that all 30 places in the company, we can do these updates with just one click and then tell everybody to update the versions, and then it propagates to everywhere in one sweet change. This is the kind of programming style that lends itself to object-oriented programming, and this is also something that you should start encapsulating into your own workflows and your own projects, because be sure when you go work for a corporation or an organization of any size, of any seriousness, you're going to be using techniques like this. In closing, I'd like to mention a few items. As a new developer, be reluctant to criticize new employers' code base. You will likely have a limited view of the entire picture that has been developed over the history of that corporation's efforts. Be aware that an excellent code design may look frustrating to a person that did not design it. That's always true. Over time, companies start settling into certain design patterns as a result of many trial and error events. Over time, you will start to advance into architect positions within that company or other companies, and then the new employers will start to criticize your designs as being silly and frustrating. So just keep in mind, do your best to learn frameworks, always use good coding practices, implement the topics that we discussed, and I'd like to thank you for watching, and I look forward to your comments and feedback.